Stu, can you start by just giving us a little bit of background on the situation the company was facing before we started working together?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, when you look back on the history of the company, we had been an entrepreneurial model that had developed businesses in a variety of different markets, and it was really that, you know, 1,000 flowers blooming, death by 1,000 cuts kind of organization where we had so many different lines of business. We finally got to the point that we couldn't grow anymore because we couldn't choose what was most important to us. We had conflicts in the company. We had rising costs. We had more challenges in our competitive environment. And we realized this a couple of years ago that we had to reshape, rethink, refocus, reprioritize what we were doing. This is pre-sequestration. It was not driven by a dramatic market shift. It was not driven by anything other than our own hand to be able to come in and say, we need to rethink the company and begin to prioritize. So we went through a very, very deliberate process to think through that prioritization, what we were going to do to maximize shareholder value, how we were going to make an impact in the same way we had done for 40 plus years, but in a smaller number of markets, in some of the growth markets, and begin to rid ourselves of older businesses. And as we went through that process, Bain was a critical supporter, leader, participant, partner in everything that we did because we had realized we had to change. We had to go through a process to figure out how to do that.
So you chose the path of separation and to take the split route.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about what that's now entailed, looking back at having gone through the majority of the process? What does that feel like in terms of work scope and what it took to get it done?
Yeah, let me back up a little bit on this separation concept, because one of the things that Bain did was they made a recommendation. There was lots of different ways we could look at this. We could go through a holding company model. We can go through a sales or divestiture model. The holdco, the sellco, or the splitco were really three models. And one of the things that Bain had done was said, the separation is the hardest. It's going to be the most expensive. It's going to be the hardest. And if I could characterize three things, it's the hardest, it's the most expensive, it's the hardest. and it was funny in the process because of a lot of dialogue that we had with yourself, with a number of folks on the Bain team. We really chose that model because we felt it gave us the most capacity for unleashing the potential of SAIC in whatever form. Now, because of what I said before about this, 1,000 flowers blooming organization, we had a highly fractionated, highly disaggregated organization, very, very large, controlling kind of headquarters organization. And it wasn't as if we were just spinning out something we didn't want. We went through the model to say, wait a minute, we have to reinvent ourselves, which meant we weren't going to lop off 10% of our business that we didn't really want because we knew what that core was. We had to first understand what our core was. And so going through the process of thinking about where is the market, what is the market buying, how do they buy it, what's the go-to-market strategy, and how do we take what we had and then separate it into what turned out to be two companies of what we called white and blue, which became white became future SAIC and blue became Leidos. But to go through this process and really assess, did we have businesses that made sense? Were they generating shareholder value? And that methodical process caused us to look at every system, every tool, every business, every customer, every contract, and begin to think about how we reallocate it. So it wasn't just taking a division and separating it out. It was really building two companies from the ground up. And I've often said when you build two companies from the ground up, you're taking this large group of businesses that you had in the middle, and you stand up a little bit over here and a little bit over there, and you keep building these things up. And when you're done, you have a whole bunch of things in the middle that you never really needed to begin with. It was bureaucracies, it was bad businesses that you had accumulated over the years. So it was refreshing to us to go through this process with Bain because you guys challenged us on an ongoing basis. You had a lot of data, a lot of views of the markets, of the strategy in the markets, of how people had gone through these processes, and we really learned a lot throughout that entire engagement to say, how do we assess our business for real value? It wasn't just taking something and splitting it off. It was looking at the real value proposition and how the markets react to that value, how we get rewarded for that in terms of our multiples, and that was really the process. So we created two completely distinct organizations, had a leftover third that we didn't need. It caused us to have to cut significant amount of overhead. Probably not as much as you all wanted us to, and we still are challenged by doing that. We still have to cut our overhead because we still have too many of those embedded costs. But looking at every single element of our business, who we did business for, how we did it, how we structured the layers of leadership, the type of leadership, the business processes, the systems, the tools, and it was a complete, ground to beginning of building up these two companies. And what was most amazing to us is as we went through this process, we ended up with two companies that were so dramatically different, and you would have thought two companies born from the same parent would have been, lookalikes. They were twins. They looked a lot alike, but they were just a little different focus. We were fundamentally two different businesses under one umbrella when we started. We just didn't realize it until we went through this very laborious process of looking at every element of our being in order to create two great companies.
So you've been very complimentary about the role that we played, which I appreciate. Can you talk a little bit about what's been different about working with Bain? You've had experience with other firms. What's clicked? What's worked for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. We use a lot of advisors in our business, and we, of course, provide advice and counsel to many government program offices. So there's a kind of an interesting relationship, and there's almost a codependency that's created at some level where you have something that you can share, and you're limited in terms of your capabilities, and you try to keep providing that capability, and you always want to grow in a new area because it's a good business model, right? Once you get in, you keep doing something. What I found really interesting about Bain was the first engagement we had with Bain was really around the idea of more of an energy business and engineering business strategy. And yet, as we began to explore the concept of the separation, the concept of market dynamics, the strategic, the technology, the people, the cost cutting, there was always Bain expertise in every area. Now, one of the things that we often say about SAIC is, we have 2 to 5 world-class experts in every kind of capability, and it's just finding them. You had the ability to find them pretty quickly, so it didn't matter what direction we went into. When procurement wanted to go into a more significant cost analysis and cost reduction, you all had great people. Jim Harris came in and just, really did a phenomenal job. Jim Winiger, Logan, Jordan, just all the people that have supported us have been great folks, and every one of them are experts in what they do. And so we found ourselves in a position to take the expert advice, challenge a little bit, but it wasn't a typical consultative approach where you always had the right answer and you just kept telling us what we were doing that was wrong. You listened to how quirky we were or how unique we were as an organization. You learned a lot about our business. You learned more about our business than most people in the leadership of this company has in our business, because you really had to understand what made us tick in order to apply the knowledge and expertise that you had to make us more effective. And that's what I found interesting, because we would throw a topic out and you'd bring in a couple of really smart experts or some very young, energetic folks that really wanted to help us out. And we attacked problems collectively. There was never an us and them. There was never on one side of the table or on the other. It was always a partnership. That's pretty unique. Again, I've used a lot of consulting organizations, and you grow tired of them pretty quickly because it's like a hammer looking for a nail, right? When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. With Bain, one of the challenges I put out to you was we couldn't have you drive the process. We had to own the process. We had to drive it through a very disciplined systems engineering approach because that's what we knew. And you all went through the training and learned it just like we did, right? And we trained everybody in that. And that collaboration of how we had to conduct and run the business, vice the advice and counsel that you were giving us, just melded perfectly. And so it really was powerful to get that team combined.
That's great. You were kind enough to share challenge coins with our team, which was a very meaningful thing for everybody on our team. It came as a complete surprise.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be great if you could describe a little bit about why you did that and what they represent for you.
The challenge, I grew up in military and intelligence background, and the challenge coin has been around since World War I. It was originally used as an identifier for people that were part of your unit. It went from more of an identifier to more of a morale builder. Morale, to get a unit to have a esprit de corps, to have some amount of relationship to and pride in what people did. And then often a unit commander would take a challenge coin and give it to somebody for special achievement. It was always a recognition of an incredible job that had gone on in that particular unit. So it's been around in the intel community forever, in the defense community forever, and it's really been applied in many different ways. I have a challenge coin that I created years ago, and it is designed, it has SAIC on the back, and it says unparalleled mission performance across all domains, air, land, sea space, and cyberspace. And it has a coin on the front that says protecting and promoting freedom with a picture that I had created. And I created this coin as my own personal challenge coin that I would give to people who accomplished something that had gone above and beyond really the call of duty. And so I ran the intel business here. I have people that go into harm's way. They do things that are pretty extraordinary. But I would only give these coins to people who had served the mission at the highest level. Not people that did business development, not somebody that implemented some great process improvement or efficiency program, but people that put their lives in danger and served the mission with often with silent pride. And what I had said to your team was, in many ways, you all served our own mission with silent pride. I never had to worry about you challenging us except on a professional level. You became part of that unit. You became part of that mission. You took on some pretty significant demons in terms of our own quirkiness and so our inefficiencies, our bureaucracies, this very tangled up mess that we called SAIC, and you had to navigate through that, and you did it in a professional level. And so I gave each of your members this challenge coin because I thought it exemplified that special achievement that you all had, as well as the partnership, the morale, and the unit cohesion that you were part of in this whole process. I also gave it to you before the end of the actual separation, and the reason I did that, if you recall, was to say thank you for everything that you've done, because when it's all done and over with, people will forget the contribution that many of our advisors had made, and I wanted you to know before we even got to that celebration how special and important I thought Bain was in the whole process.
That's great. Thanks, Stu. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.